Hey viewers, my name's Cara. My pronouns are they, them, and she, her. Wanted to record a quick video while I'm thinking about a subject and I have a little bit of time. I am dog sitting currently, so you might hear a dog in the background from time to time. But firstly, last week was my birthday, so there's that. I didn't get a video posted last week, unfortunately, on my public channel anyway. I already posted a Patreon video earlier this month. But yeah, my birthday was last week. I'm 33 now, 3-3, and I had a good time. I went to one of my mom's karaoke shows and went to the movies, went to dinner, went to a few new vegan places that I hadn't been to out here, a couple museums. I love a museum as a birthday thing. I got to go to a couple new museums that I'd never been to. And I also did a couple online birthday hangouts with some of my friends back in my local community since I'm not in physical space with them right now. And also one for people in my Patreon community. So I did 2 different online hangouts. And the Patreon one, we were just hanging out in the Discord that is associated with my Patreon community. And we had some really awesome conversations about just so many things, and also then played some games together. So it was a great time. Shout out to Ems and Troy and Keith for being there hanging out, and thank you to everybody else who gave me birthday wishes. I posted about it on Instagram, so if you're following me there, you've already seen it, you already know. If not, if this is the first you're hearing of it, you don't have to wish me a happy belated because you didn't know that it already passed. This is the first time I'm telling you. So just, you can say happy birthday, but you don't have to say belated if you don't want. So anyway, that now aside, I've been thinking about a subject over the last couple of days since I saw something on social media that prompted this thought process, and I started thinking about it immediately, and I started recording a video for my Instagram story about it, but then it won't work. It will not load properly. It crashes the app. I've tried updating it. I've tried clearing the cache. I've tried everything. I'm not asking for advice about that. I've looked up the solutions. They just do not work. I don't understand. Whatever. But that's why I also don't bother with reels or anything video format on Instagram. It just does not work on my device. I don't know. So anyway, I started recording to get my thoughts out about that, and it didn't work. So then I was like, I'll do a video about it at some point. Then over the last few days since then, the topic has come up multiple times in my other reading and just, different things reminding me of it or elaborating on it. And so I thought, okay, I want to record this now while it is so present. So the other day, I saw a post that it was one of those things where somebody's sharing it on this platform, but it was originally from another platform, and who knows, right? But it was somebody talking about having an idea for a modern goddess, a sort of updated goddess that they think should exist. And hush, puppy. And then somebody else in the comments said, oh, I have other ideas for modern goddesses. But then they were describing what is basically, in my mind, sounded like they were describing elemental spirits, spirits of the elements. And they were pinpointing ways that those elements show up in not even just a modern context, but the way I saw it, they were kind of focusing on very urban and domestic versions of those things, as opposed to maybe how people might think of them generally as being of wild places, So when we're talking about spirits of the elements of earth, air, fire, and water, I guess some people might be more likely to imagine things like a campfire, a bonfire, the sun, a waterfall, the ocean, mountains going way up into the sky and, clouds surrounding you, maybe as air, and maybe some like untouched wilderness, forest, caves, things like that for Earth. Whereas this person was pinpointing things that are more domestic, or we could maybe say even more urban in some cases, like the water flowing through pipes in our plumbing, and the furnace and the air conditioning, things like that. And so they were talking about it in terms of like new spirits or new energies that they were kind of thinking up and that thought should exist. And it was so interesting to me reading that, because I just thought, yeah, those are the elements. Like, you're talking about the energies and the spirits of the elements, like elementals, stuff like that. Like, yeah, you're talking about spirits that do exist. And I realized that this is kind of a cool thing to like observe happening in other people, like people realizing that they feel a need to recognize energies and spirits in everyday things, and they don't realize that, yeah, those spirits are there. Like, you're not, just because you had the thought and you're like, oh, this is a thing that, like, in my imagination, I think maybe should exist. That's not necessarily what's happening, right? Like, it's not that people are thinking up these wild notions. They're not making it up. These are energies that exist already, and this is just kind of the way that people are discovering them, in a way. And I thought that was really interesting. And somebody had mentioned, in response to the OP, talking about the original post, talking about the modern goddess, they had mentioned, oh yeah, all of those characteristics that you're mentioning about this new version of the deity as you are picturing them in your mind, all of the characteristics that you're listing are characteristics of existing deities. There are deities that deal with those things already. And what I really noticed about it, even more than just realizing that for myself, like, oh yeah, you're talking about like entities that do exist, and just thinking like how cool that this is, like somebody is discovering these energies right now. The other thing I noticed was just that that's kind of what the vibe felt like, because I feel like that is a really easy place where somebody in the comments could have made it about trying to tell that person that they were wrong, or that they were, being silly for thinking that they were coming up with something new when these things already exist. But instead, that's not the vibe I got at all. I got the vibe that people were more excited to share that, like, actually, yeah, the deity you're talking about is kind of like this other deity who already exists. And it was more in terms of, like, maybe you would like to get to know them. Maybe you would like to learn more about them, because it sounds like that is the area that you are looking for assistance, connection, etc. And it also occurred to me that in a big way, this is a huge example of how different people in different cultures over time, in different locations and different time periods, came across a need for a certain energy and connection in their lives with whatever was going on in their society, culture, or in their personal life. And all over the planet, and probably on other planets too, in other solar systems and all that, but let's not go all the way out there yet today. People all over the world throughout history had the desire to relate to very similar energies, but the way that they engaged with them was filtered through different life experience, language, all kinds of things. And so this is how we now have a bunch of different deities from a bunch of different cultures and historical time periods who more or less work on the same areas of life. And I just thought that was really cool to see kind of a different example of that, of people thinking things like, well, I know there's stuff like water spirits, but that's like the ocean, right? But thinking, but what about like, what if we created energies that were the water spirits of the kitchen faucet? And thinking that they had to reinvent the wheel in a way to have that, but instead sharing it with other people and getting the chance to learn, hey, actually, yeah, like, you already do know about those spirits. Like, that's water spirits, like, in general. Are there maybe, specific ones that work on specific things? Maybe. That depends on how you conceive of these beings in your mind, or how you have interacted with them or engaged with them. But in my mind, like, those are all water spirits. And if they live at a lake in the middle of the woods, that is the body of water that is their thing. But there are water spirits everywhere because there's water everywhere. There's water within us, our tears, our sweat, our blood, in a way, the liquid and flowing through our bodies. And there's water in our houses if we have indoor plumbing. And there's water, water features, water fountains, in landscaping all over the place. Like, water spirits are present there too. Just because a faucet doesn't feel anything like a waterfall on a tropical island or something like that doesn't mean that they're not still water spirits. And so there is still a very essential sort of water energy to tap into there, and a very essential thing to approach, a way to approach and engage with them. And the same goes for all the others. So I just thought that was really interesting and kind of cool, and also helped to excuse you. The dog wants to play. A way to sort of reignite the way that I think about those sorts of energies and spirits in my practice too, because the elements in particular are a big foundation of my practice, and I work with them in so many ways, and I always love learning new ways to work with them. And I already knew that I conceived of them as being in our everyday lives and in every way that those elements show up, and not just in the wilderness. But it was still very cool for me to sort of see somebody else acknowledge somebody who might not be pagan or a witch, by the way. Like, this was just a random post that came through. It wasn't necessarily from like a pagan or witchcraft account or anything like that, right? So just very cool to see other people just in their everyday lives start thinking about, like, okay, but what if there were like energies for these things too? Like, what if there were little spirits in my kitchen and in my bathroom? And I'm just like, they're there. And how excited are they right now that you like just acknowledged them? Like, you just realized without even realizing, but you did realize that they are there, that they are everywhere. So I don't know, that's just very cool to me. And then on the deity side, I'm 100% in favor of like modern interpretations of deity, or like new conceptions of deity, pop culture representations, like characters that very much embody these characteristics of what we might associate with the word deity, or big spirits and energies and things like that. I'm all for it. It's just also a lot of the time that I have seen it occur, it's usually been in ways that it's maybe an updated or a different way of looking at them, but the essence of what that more modern figure represents you can find the seeds of ancient deities in these newer forms. I feel like I don't want to say more words about that. There is so much to say, and I'm sure you know I could go on for an hour, but I think that's plenty to convey to you the intrigue and the excitement that I had about this and kind of where my mind is going with it. And then, yeah, in the last couple days, I've been reading things. I'm trying to catch up in reading several books right now. I just did a charm school update on my blog, so I talk about it a little bit there, but I'm trying to catch up on some reading. And one of the books I'm reading, I was thinking about all this the other day, and then the next chapter I read was talking about different energies and spirits and the way that they relate to one another and the way that we can find them in our everyday lives. And I was like, I was just thinking about this. And then the chapter that I just read earlier today is talking about the elementals and how to like form connections with the essences of the elements. I'm like, yeah, I gotta make my video about this today because it just keeps coming back up. So thanks so much for watching and or listening to this video. I will see you next time. Until then, don't forget to be awesome, blessed be, and goodbye. And now I'm gonna go play with this dog.